Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Lumastic Live. Good morning. Thanks for joining us here, Friday, 9 a.m. Oh, good Lord. Is there an echo now? No, we're good. We're solid.
I think we're good.
Um, every time we start the stream, it seems that's something snafus. But for those of you joining us for the first time, my name is Drew. I'm the CEO of a company called Lumastic. We make basically a co-working space on the internet. And in this show, we basically document the process of trying to kind of build this company and show people kind of a new way forward for how we can run business. And my lovely co-host, Joshua, also a founder, just a good solid human, joins me, so I have somebody to talk to and I'm not just talking to myself. Joshua, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. We were just talking before about weeks, and I'm currently finishing up my capstone. So that's been the week push and like the weekly grind on thesis and technical report and all that
Yeah,
jazz.
don't miss that, don't miss that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How was your
yeah.
week?
It's been good. I've spent a majority of this week building a text editor. So for the new board system, we're redoing how our editor works to so that it works on mobile and like all these other things that we should have done a long time ago. We should have just done from the get go, but you live and learn. But I'm using this like basically JavaScript engine to build a text editor. And it's like a lot of work. Like I've written 23,000 lines of code in the past 4 days.
Jeez.
So it's quite intense, but
Are you getting sleep?
oh yeah, yeah,
23,000
yeah.
is not
I'm good. This is the benefit of being young, having no real responsibility, and getting to mooch off of your and your girlfriend's savings account is that I get to do this full time. So I'm not no sleepless nights. Really, I'm just like grinding during the day and then trying to get away from my computer. I will say I did work pretty late into the evening last night, and then we went to dinner with Sarah's family, which was really nice. But um, yeah, it's good. I'm trying to own the fact more that like the point when Keith and I were like, yeah, let's do this thing. Like the point was that we could like have some sense of freedom, like building our own thing, right? Like being your own boss, like
Yeah.
running your company is supposed to be to provide you that like autonomy, flexibility, freedom. So I'm just trying to like own that more, right? Like that was the point, and so like let's just do that from the beginning rather than constantly worrying about trying to get this thing off the ground. Yeah, and other ways that pans out is like this summer I'm taking like a bunch of days to like go travel places.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so like I'm gonna go learn how to surf in a couple weeks. Because I was like, yeah, I really want to learn how. I've been all over surf YouTube. So I'm
Really?
like let's.
Just like out of the blue, is it one of those YouTube just like holes you got into?
Well, I've wanted to surf for a long time. Cause like, I grew up skateboarding and snowboarding and like wakeboarding, all these things. I like board sports a lot. Like I don't know if I've ever shown you, but I have this like I'm one of like the only people in Virginia. I think I am actually the only person in Virginia that owns this like six-wheeled skateboard that basically allows you to snowboard on pavement. It's called a freeboard. Um, it's super cool and awesome, but yeah, I'm like super into that stuff. I wanted to surf for a long time, and then I just like I don't even know why. Maybe it was like some YouTube recommendation thing, whatever. But this creator called Kale Brock. His handle is Kale's Broccoli on YouTube. He's like a surf instructor, super cool guy in Australia. Lives out of a van and like just makes
Just living
surf
the life.
instructional content.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and so I subscribed to his channel, and it was just like a big inspiration point, and I was like, let's go. Like well, actually Sarah was like, you're obsessed with this and you need to like
Go explore
like
it.
yeah, actually go see
Yeah,
if you like this rather than just talking about it all the time. Yeah, so that's the digs. I
that's
don't know
so
how
cool.
we got on this topic, but
Wait,
I'm into
you're gonna first,
it.
please send me the picture of the six-wheel skateboard. I'm like very curious.
I will,
My,
I will.
my friend Rohan recently was like got a penny board, and he was like for the longest time talking about I want to get a penny board because he's going to U shout out Rohan, he's going to UPenn for a PhD in biomedical engineering.
Whoa.
Very big brain guy. That's what we say. But yeah, he got a penny board, and he's just been like literally the first day he was just trying to balance. So if you got tips and tricks, I might connect you to, because he keeps sending me videos at like 12 a.m. of him on grounds trying to like skate.
Trying to do anything. Here,
Yeah.
I'm showing the stream right now.
Oh my gosh.
Um, yeah, so this is it. So you can see it's got six.
Oh,
It's just
that's
got
cool.
two wheels in the middle so that it kind of pivots. Um, and so then you use your side wheels and your trucks as edges, like as if you were on a
Interesting.
snowboard. It is like the most hacked, like like whack thing. This is what I love about skate culture is like the same thing I like about that really got me into like making videos too is like these people are engineers, right? They like build
Yeah.
their own tools, they like figure out shit. It's all about solving problems. Yeah, and I just love it. I think it's so fun. So what a lovely little tangent.
Yeah.
Shout out to Freeboard. They're a very small company, so shout out to them. If anybody's interested in buying one, do it.
Check.
I promise you will not regret it. And then we can go freeboarding together as like the only people in Virginia that own this device.
That's so funny. Do you go any like what places are the best for it? I assume like hills, right?
Yeah, you need hills. That's the one thing bad about the freeboard is that you can only go downhill.
Mm,
I mean, most skateboards it sucks to go uphill, but you can at least do it. But this thing you can't even push, right? Because it's like constantly going like this. And so you just have to take it to the top. It's exactly a snowboard. You take it to the top, you go
get
down.
down.
And so there's a hill right next to our house that for a couple days consistently I went out. But really this is one of those hobbies that I've like severely fallen out of because it like takes a lot. It's like going, it is literally, I mean the barrier to entry is way lower, but it is like kind of the same feeling of going snowboarding. It's like you got to get all your stuff on, you got to go out, and then you have to keep going up and down rather than like when I skateboarded in college, like I'd go out to the like stadium parking lot because it's super flat and just like ride around for a couple hours because it's like way easier. If anybody's interested in other other skateboard related materials, there's this thing called a surf skate, which is I might as well show all this shit.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so let's look up the surf skate. So if you imagine how the freeboard worked, let's see if they'll show a video on their website. No, they don't show a video. So right, it was. Hang on, I'm gonna mute this. Oh, not full screen. Hello. Right, it pivots here. This one is basically that same kind of idea where like the truck pivots, but it's only on the front. So you have like way more. It's basically like your front truck. I don't know how it. There's like two people watching this, and neither of them skateboard probably. So this is just the worst stream. Basically, like the front truck pivots as well as going this way. It goes
Yeah.
like forward and back. It's super cool. This is like the next thing that I want to invest in. Yeah. Yeah, 3
Yeah.
concurrent viewers. Look at that. Yeah, surfing surf tube. Yeah, we're joining surf tube, Chelsea.
It's so funny. But
All right,
on a, on
Jojo,
a,
get us back on topic.
no,
What do
I
you?
was, I was just gonna say on a side note, it's so cool that like I feel like in every creator community, like you said, like in skateboards, they're engineers in many ways. Like it's cool that like I feel like every single one of the community has that way of engineering in like a sense, and it's just
Yeah,
like it's so
exactly.
cool what the products come out like, whether it be in photography, like even
Yeah, to
just
solve
artists.
your
It's
own
just
problems.
yeah, it's
Right.
just so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Um,
awesome. I think that creating that culture of around like a hobby is like just so awesome.
yeah.
And it's for everything, right? Like that the intersectionality between like engineering, making stuff, whatever, and like any hobby, it's just so cool to me. And like that's what attracts me to like a lot of these hobbies. I think at the core of it is that a lot of them are down to solving problems and making stuff. Yeah, like I have a
Yeah.
bunch of leather working stuff in my closet for like the same same reason.
Yeah, I feel very, very similar, since I always end up finding myself just getting stuff to make other stuff, whether it be in
Exactly.
like 3D printing. I actually am like halfway done with a 6 foot tennis racket on a side note.
Whoa! It's got
Um,
3 feet of a tennis racket.
it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 15 pieces printed, and it like, yeah, it's big. It's gonna be big.
Lord.
I hope I don't mess this up. I will. I
Wait, so tell
might
me more.
tear.
So did you cut it in Mesh Mixer, or like how did you, or did you design it with
So
from the parts directly?
So what I did was I first designed the whole tennis racket, and then what I did in I just measured the bed of the ender with like some
Yeah,
room,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then I just used planes to cut it in Fusion, and then
Mm,
would like pretty much when you do that, it just makes a bunch of bodies, and you can save the individual bodies as individual STL files. So I have them like all labeled in
interesting.
one folder, starting from the base with like a numbering system that I have. So I'm just going up through it and printing every single piece.
Wow.
Um, and there's definitely ways I wanted to improve it, but like you said, like I was working to like make this thing. And so like rather like I in the future I would like to like actually design in ways the pieces can connect. But at the first go, I was like, I'm just gonna hot glue this
Glue.
like
Yeah,
because
glue.
I got school, other stuff. Like I just want this printed. So not printing now, but if it was, I usually wake up at like 5:30 a.m. I don't know if my roommate hates me, and I just like load this next STL file. It's been like 20. It's anyways, back on I'll take us back on track. This has been a chaotic beginning of an episode. But yeah, I'll probably have an update of that soon, hoping to have it done.
So cool. I'm excited for the day when you just like throw out your video this like plastic
It's like this
like
cute, yeah,
sweet tennis racket.
yeah.
That
But
we could put together a like a demo video. There's a tennis court right by my house.
well, I'm designing it as kind of more of an art installation. So it's going to be something I can hang on
Mm,
the wall. So it's half of a
cool.
tennis racket. Think of it sliced, but I can technically print out the other half and combine them. But I made it because I wanted to make the strings lights and then design the
Oh,
outside with
cool.
like a stencil pattern. So it's just like this because I love just tennis, and there was one of the recent albums I liked was from an artist called Amine, and it was all kind of tennis themed, and so just been really into that aesthetic and vibe. And I was like, this would be a cool piece to have just like on this wall. But I think I'm gonna put it in the living room because my roommates really are like, this is cool. We need to show it.
Dude,
Um,
that's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm pumped to see this now.
I'll be sure. Yeah, I need to document the process more. I started, but
Yeah,
um,
just throw together some IG reels for all these things. I hear that's the new hot thing.
as Lumastic's first reel I saw was posted yesterday.
Yeah, my gosh, thank you. Shout out to anybody watching this that liked and commented on that thing. Chelsea did a great job putting that
Yeah.
together. Shout out to Chelsea, right? Um, yeah. All right,
Yeah.
Joshua, what's our topic today?
So
What are we supposed to talk
we're gonna
about?
dive into Coinbase and talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
politics. So
CoinCase, base camp, all of the no politics in the workplace thing.
So I think I read the 2 articles this week, but for anyone who doesn't know, Drew sent me, I think it was around Wednesday, 2 articles about Basecamp and Coinbase talking about politics at work. They're really interesting articles and good reasons. Going to make, I feel like, for a really great conversation out of it.
Hmm.
So I'm always curious. I always like ask you, how did you stumble upon this? Like, what were your initial thoughts? And also kind of give more of a breakdown. Were you on Twitter as well, seeing the whole thing go down?
No, so this was actually like I had heard about Coinbase's like policy change and was like, well, all right, because honestly, all the crypto companies I feel like I wouldn't vibe with really that much, and so when they came out, I was like, meh. But then when Basecamp did it, because I love Basecamp and Jason Fried and DHH, I think that they're a good company at their core. But when this started happening, Keith found out about it, I think, on Twitter, and sent me a message that was basically like, "Yo, have you heard about what's going on with Basecamp?" And so then I Googled and was reading the article, and that's when I stumbled into kind of this like sphere of decision making that I thought was like not good. And so then I wrote a blog post about why I think it is not good, called "All Companies Have Social Impact," because one of the lines in like, so I don't know if we like specifically explained it. Basically, what happened was companies are starting to create policies in which you're not allowed to talk about politics at work under the gaze that like it's unproductive and divisive and it's not what our company is like designed to do and blah 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 blah. And like fuck it, whatever, you're a private company, fine. But in this specific article, that like the blog post where Jason Fried announced, he's the CEO of Basecamp, where he announced this policy change, he basically said that like their company is not a social impact company, and what they do is make software. They're not in the business of like doing like having any opinions or whatever on the like social justice and stuff. And I thought that was really dumb and insensitive and unempathetic and just like uncharacteristic of him and their company as like a whole, because this is the same company that like taught me and got me into platform cooperatives, which is like an idea that we are like seriously considering and moving towards, and like actively working on. And so like they do get a lot of the stuff about like economic and social justice and the role that businesses play in this, and so it just seemed like really out of left field that they would have such like a hardline stance that really doesn't make any sense. Yeah, and so it was just like really interesting to me, and I felt compelled to write a blog post about the fact that like literally because companies are made up of humans that exist in a society, they have social impact, and it's been studied like time and time and again that like the relationships that you build at work and the workplace culture that surrounds you like significantly impacts more than anything, I think, in this Deloitte study, except church. Like literally affects the way that you see, view, and interact with people in the world. So I think it's really dumb to say that any company is not a social impact company. And it goes back to a conversation that you and I had a long time ago that was basically about like the rise of social entrepreneurship as like a separate entity,
Yeah.
and how this idea that like companies should be designed to work for social good is like new and like wow, special, different. But really what that does is just prove that like our dominant culture of entrepreneurial thinking is to not think about that, even though that's vitally important and like the point of business. Like
Yeah. It it is actually like ridiculous to me. I mean, to go back to that point, but it's just like they preach just in normal entrepreneurship, like you provide a value, right? And then, but then they're like, it's still like they don't treat it the same way they treat social entrepreneurship, and it has like
yeah.
that ring. But like social entrepreneurship should be the norm. Like you should
Yeah,
be
that should be entrepreneurship,
entrepreneurship.
right?
Yeah, it should
Yeah.
be. What are you gonna? Yeah, it just baffles me. Like, what are you making if it's not for that? Like,
Yeah, exactly. And what it does is prove a lot of the um like uh I guess more progressive thinking of like we need a fundamental shift in how we think about business, because it literally just proves that like our dominant culture doesn't think that way, and it's caused a shit ton of problems. It's just that we're treating it as if it's like worse business, but it is good. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. It
Rather than seeing it as good business and good.
it's like yeah, it's like even with like non-profits that have that. I don't know. I feel like nonprofits, just in general, they have that ring because they're not making money. They're like less efficient. I don't know
Hmm.
why people. Yeah, I don't know why there's like this ring. I just like get this vibe in general when, 'cause especially when I was thinking through it for Ripple, because I've been really thinking about like I really don't want to sell content because it's just going to contribute to a greater education disparity
Yeah,
because
and
rich
equity.
parents will buy the package for pre-med stuff for their kids who
Yeah.
want to go to pre-med, but not like other people. Like I just don't like that. like not about it, not about it at all.
Yeah.
Especially coming from Northern Virginia, where like was again, we've talked about this, like very privileged to just even
Yeah.
grow up in Northern Virginia. But like there, like I remember seeing in high school so many people just like kind of like the system. There's TJ and all these like academy schools,
Yeah.
and all the application process is like parents who have money will throw their kids into a bunch of prep programs. They'll get in. Is that really fair?
Yeah.
I don't think so,
y-
personally, but
Yeah, exactly. And um to talk a little bit about this idea of like nonprofits, there's like a stigma. I think
yeah,
that that the rise of social entrepreneurship and us thinking about how to create like sustainable entities that provide good to communities, um, it can actually really help nonprofits restructure the way they think. Like Sarah's on the like an advisory board for the Hunger Project, which is like a big international nonprofit. Um, and something that I think about a lot when like we talk about what happened in their meetings or whatever is like how you can build a nonprofit entity that does not require donations, like, and how you can build kind of this flywheel, like sustainable flywheel, like an economic engine that can actually support the work you do, um, and that is a very like entrepreneurship-y thinking that I think can really collide with a lot of nonprofit entities, so that like we stop thinking about the work that is done there as charity. I think that in general, like the idea of us relying on charity as like a way of solving incredibly difficult problems in the world is like really bad, um, and it's not efficient at all. And like these problems need to be solved at like a mass, big scale. And so, if we can have more thinking about how like rather than there being this big segment between like for profit and non-profit businesses, if there's just like entities that create sustainable economic engines for doing good work in the world, right? If like that's the gaze that we see things as, and then we figure out classifications of whether or not you want to file as a nonprofit or an LLC or right a co-op or whatever. I think we'll all be kind of like better off in that system. I don't know if that does that make sense. I'm kind of
no,
workshopping this idea on the fly.
no, it definitely does because I feel like I was also under that impression. That was one thing that kind of stuck out to me is that I always thought it's just like just donations, but like it definitely does make sense that you can not have to go with the like there's a better way out there that people can kind of think through, and I think that is um exactly it does tie in even to kind of like last week where you can create that like engine and everyone can kind of like contribute their
Yeah.
engines together in many ways to like make really cool stuff. So
Yeah, again, it's
yeah,
like the we
uh,
create zebras. We're creating a zebra
Libra.
economy.
Yeah.
um, yeah, and what's really interesting, so Hank Green is starting a new company that is kind of in like stealth mode. It's like a it's like a real startup, it seems. Like they're looking he put out a video that was basically like, I'm looking for a co-founder for this company. And there was like a Google form application. And in the description, he's basically like, we have this idea to create like a really cool like thing that helps people like buy sustainable products. And the kicker is all the profits go to charity. Um, and so like we're looking for somebody to help build that thing out. And really what we're going to be, this is not a traditional startup. Like we're not taking VC money or all that stuff. All the stuff that we vibe with. But he was like, the thing we are trying to create is like showing people a new way of doing business, and creating a new business model for how we can like do good work in the world. And I was like, hell yeah.
I was about to say like that sounds like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah, so I'm applying, but not to be. I wouldn't get that gig. I'm like I'm very naive and young. Really, I'm filling out that application to explain to somebody on Hank Green's team what we do and be like, hello, like we would like to help you like build whatever the thing that you're building is, because this is also like really interesting use case to us, right? Like you're going to need some project management software. Like,
Yeah. So how are you filling out the application? Are you filling out the application like literally and being like, "Yo, by
yeah,
the way, like,
yeah. No, I'm filling it out as like this is who I am. This is what we do. Um, and being very upfront that like I know I will not get this job. And I like don't really want the job, right? Which I hate saying that because then it's like I'm making somebody read this thing and like take time away from like really looking at other candidates. I just really do think we can be helpful, and it's been very difficult to try to like show somebody legitimately that like we are trying to help people. And so I'm hoping that this is like another thing that I can have a more intimate audience with somebody reading this application and in a long form, right? Like
yeah."
to explain, well, longish, longer than an email, and in a context that makes more sense, right? So I don't know. That's like an idea right now. It's not something I've acted on. Um, but so we'll see how that happens. But to tie in again, it's like this like new path forward we're going down. Where like Sarah's looking it up right now. Companies will be shown how to be both socially responsible and fiscally sustainable. Um, I think is like super vitally important and ties into the next topic, I guess, Joshua, which is the like, how does government help us do that?
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts? What have you been seeing in terms of like the like new like policy ideas coming out there, but also like specifically all these like antitrust cases? Have you been following them at all? Like,
Yeah.
what's the digs?
I do follow them like a good amount just because I mean d data is a pretty big conversation naturally in my family, which is just
Mm.
funny, like data privacy. So I very much so don't like Facebook. Like I'll just come out and say like I very much so don't like Facebook. Want it to be split up. I just think that like and I kind of actually tie this into my thesis in many ways and talking about just
Mm.
the design process. And like because you have to kind of go through so my thesis, for those who don't know, is with Arena Labs, which is a company looking to address physician burnout by kind of twofold approach: a wellness kind of coaching approach, and then also through data to compare with Whoop, which is a biometric company initially made for athletes, but we're using that data and also qualitative data to see if we can kind of like pinpoint burnout. And if you're able to like pinpoint it, you're able to solve the problem more, since burnout in the past has been kind of like this vague term. So there's like a
Right.
huge push to quantify it and like put numbers to it and all this stuff. And just in that process, like figuring out a big question is like, who owns data? So like if your user, so like we put the Whoop data on them and we collect some of it. And so just like anything with the stuff that was coming about Amazon when what company was it? The really conservative um what was the company, social media, the conservative social media company?
Parlor.
Parlor was
Mm.
like that was a very different instance, but like started thinking more like when you buy something, like who owns that data, and like it's
Right.
very different for health data, right? It's a bit more, it's very personalized and identifiable and all these things, but just regardless in that whole process, just become a huge fan of just being like very transparent. And this is one thing I really liked that you did at Lumastic, actually, because I was working on this and then seeing you do it and implement it is like making very clear guidelines to your community. Like, this is what we do. We're telling you what we do. This is the service
Yeah.
we provide. If you have a problem with it, like let us know. And that just like
Yeah.
makes for so much better design because you're bringing in the people who are using it more into the
It's
process. Like,
co-creation, baby.
yeah, you need to bring
Mhm.
people who are going to use the thing into the room, making they need to make decisions too for the product. And
Yeah,
so
it's governance,
yeah, and
right?
so we talked about it I think last week as well, but like with Facebook, it's like I don't really think there's governance, and we talked about it's like run by technically this huge chunk of the internet just run by a select few white dudes, and it's
Yeah.
just um Yeah, I really hope they get split. I just think data information needs to be more transparent. I think it's led to like a really lot of bad things with mental health. I'm not gonna lie, like just the way it's designed, like
Yeah.
even, and I've thought about this more and more through our Lumastic lives, which is like really cool. Because we were like the whole liking system when we were reviewing Bubble House, like the likes and comments, like I started like really kind of taking in every single time I look at like these platforms and stuff, and like
Yeah.
it's just yeah, I have a very like my I think that my thoughts are kind of like all over the place in some ways, but like very like I just think that it needs to be transparent. People need to kind of come in and have a say. The
Yeah.
co-ops are really cool in that sense because it does platform cooperatives because it does give people that say in many ways. And so that's kind of my thought process. What's yours like on all of it and antitrust and the stuff that's been happening?
Yeah. So from, I guess like 2 years ago, whatever, was like the first filed lawsuit against Facebook. And um, at the time, I had been thinking a lot about uh, antitrust as like how we did antitrust back in like robber baron days, where it was like you break up the companies and now there's like separate companies that compete. Um, but like the problem with that and why I was not like really into the whole thing, or like how I felt like the government would screw it up a lot, and um, basically because like no one wants to use, right, the like third best maps app, right, like the internet by design, um, the internet like at its core, like how it works for us right now, um, is like designed to create monopolies, right, because it is a mirror, essentially a foil, of like our capitalistic economy, um, and yeah, so I was like, I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I listened to this podcast recently that was like going through a lot of the uh like testimonies from like competitor companies to like Apple, Google, Facebook, all these things. Um, and what I found really interesting is like a lot of younger people in Congress are like seeing this not so much as like, okay, how are we going to break up Amazon? But there's a lot of conversation being had about like, okay, how do we like regulate and fix the internet? Like make rules and infrastructure plans for the internet so that this doesn't happen, right? And so there's stuff like um, one, like the internet should be a public utility, right? That like decimates a bunch of like ISP companies and all these things. Super cool. Second one up is like how, which is like way more interesting, is like how do we create like requirements for how and standards for how like data is transferred on the internet to make it more open, I guess, in a way. Like transparent and also interoperable. So it's something we had talked about last week was
Yeah.
like, um, hey, what if like you owned your information and like that information could be transmitted in the same way to every website so that you got to choose like which version of Twitter you liked to use. But like if Sarah used a different version of Twitter, our Twitters could still talk to each other. Right? Like there's so much interesting stuff there that fixes a lot of the inherent systemic problems with why we've gotten to this point. Um, and I find that that conversation is super awesome and interesting. I'm planning for a blog post next week about. I always say this and then I find something else to write about, but I'm planning for a blog post next week on um, uh, ActivityPub, which is like the new W3 standard that is like how that works, to kind of try to explain it to people, but in a way that's like not the technical specification, but like the why this is like super awesome and important for us to move to. It's something that like we at Lumastic are gonna have to like, obviously not now because like no one uses the system right now, but figure out how we can play in that so that if people wanted their like progress updates or whatever, their projects, Sparks, whatever, to transfer somewhere else, it's like really easy to do that.
Yeah.
Um, it's like basically how you structure data to allow that to happen. And I think that all that stuff, all those conversations are really interesting. The one that I find specifically interesting and kind of want to get your thoughts on, is like, uh, there are like four companies like on the chopping block right now, right? Amazon, Google, Facebook, and Apple. um these three are like kind of like pretty obvious how they like get broken up or regulated, right? Facebook literally has like five different products that you could just slice off and then boom, you're done. Amazon has like 20 that you could just
Yeah.
slice off and boom, you're done. um uh yeah, same thing with Google, right? This one, Apple, right, is like kind of an interesting case. Like because they're not an internet company, right? Not necessarily, they're a hardware company. And so like the case against them is that their walled garden, their ecosystem, inhibits and prevents competition. And one really interesting thing. So I don't. Did you hear about the announcement of AirTags?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the day after AirTags were announced, Tile, the company that like Apple basically ripped the product off from, testified against Apple to Congress, about like how this works. A couple other companies did too, including Flux, which was like the night shift. I don't know if you ever used this product, but like it was night shift before night shift. Like it was a product you would download to your computer and it would change your screen to orange,
Yeah.
right, for you. And then Apple built that into their OS natively, and then the company died. Yeah, so like really just like interesting case of like, hey, the thing you're doing to prevent competition is basically like siloing your products. But although the counter argument there is that like the product is better, right, and that consumers have choice,
Yeah.
right, they could still choose to buy the tile, right,
Yeah.
but necessarily there is not actually choice. It's a false choice. Yeah, so just want to get your thoughts, opinions. I see some people in the chat too. Keith pre-ordered AirTags. That's awesome. Also, shout out to the 6 people watching us.
Sick.
Let's double what we usually have.
Yo, we
But
up
please throw something.
100%. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah. Introduce yourself. Throw something in the chat.
Yeah.
We'd love to like hear your thoughts on all these topics, and like hear what you're working on. If you're
Yeah.
a creator out there, somebody an indie entrepreneur working on something, just want to throw a little shout out that way. Also,
Yeah.
thank you to Sarah who's popping off in the chat, putting resources and everything to all the things that we're saying. So if you're watching the recording after the fact, you can click the live chat button and you can see all those as they come up. All right, Joshua, hit me with it. What are your thoughts on breaking up Apple? Because you're also an Apple product user, right? Like you have an iPhone, all these things.
Yeah. I mean
Yeah.
but I understand that thing. Like my friend Shreyash, my roommate, he has Tile. And so like immediately when that happened, I was like, but he's also like huge Apple fan. But it
Mm-hmm.
really sometimes saying huge Apple fan is like doesn't really mean you're an Apple fan because it's just like the ecosystem, exactly what you said. It's like sometimes they just get that service like with Flux, and I do remember Flux now. I forgot what the feature was, but when you said it was the dimmer, I remember reading about that and being like, "This is crazy!" Like they literally
Yeah.
just like Thanos, yeah,
Overnight.
Thanos snapped this company away.
Oh, and also when they did that, so the week before Apple put that into the OS update,
Yeah,
they banned Flux from the Mac App Store, because they were using like private APIs, really the thing to control the display.
yeah.
So very interesting.
Yeah, I would say like it would be interesting to see. I obviously don't know from like it'd be curious to get like a product manager on Apple because sometimes I wonder with like something like hardware how
Hmm.
you split up something like Apple when like a lot of things kind of like relate and like if
Yeah.
that does lead to like I just like would be curious to hear their opinion because like I think those instances like are really bad. Like, and I think it's just a really bad way about going about it, and it is crushing the competition. And like I remember I was in an entrepreneurship class, and it's like there was like they were talking about like something within like the like how you control a market,
Hmm.
and majority it's like in a square, and like when you put like a circle that completely fills up the square, that's like the big company in that space. But
Hmm.
then what happens every single time is like a little company comes in with a new idea, That's pretty novel and really great, and they have a great team, and they are trying at it. But all it takes for that other company is to just like expand their square or their circle a little, their bubble a little bit more, and it crushes it.
Yeah.
And so it's like
There's no
even like
room. There's no room.
I don't get sometimes like the counter argument because like people on the other side say they want to promote competition, but like the way the system's structured right now is not promoting competition in that sense.
Right.
I am a big fan of Apple products just because we've talked about this. Like it's
They're
the
good.
laptops, great for creatives. Like I just
They
love
they literally make the
yeah,
greatest computers, and probably I'd say phones now,
yeah,
on the planet. Like, to me, this is what you're saying about like how you break up something like hardware. I think this is one of those cases where it's not so much let's break up Apple, but like limit what that walled garden, like open up the walled garden, right? Like take
yeah,
down the walls a little, right? So like, um, in this, like, let's take the AirTags and Tile example, and like really easy regulatory practice is like, hey Apple, all of the things that you use for your closed off API you have to like either open source, or like make accessible to third party, like product engineers, right? So now Tile, because right, the reason that Tile is going to die because of AirTags is because like rather than everyone needing the Tile app, right? You just have to have to like find their thing, right? To do the whole pinging thing. You just have to have an iPhone, right? Like
yeah,
anybody with an iPhone now like helps you find your thing. And so it's just a massive, massive bigger network, that makes the product ecosystem better, right? And so that's why Tile is like fucked. But
yeah,
if there was, the government was like, okay, Apple, like, come on here, right? Like, you have to open up your Find My API, to any third party manufacturer, right? So now Tile can use right now this, big ecosystem of being able to ping from all the other iPhones, not just everybody with the Tile apps, because they built basically their own infrastructure that does the same thing that Apple now does, right?
yeah,
But now if they can use the same infrastructure, right, there's actual direct competition with the actual product, right, with the actual thing, which is the tags,
yeah,
right? And so now we're just competing on who can make it smaller, who can make the battery life bigger, right? Who can make it designed more like for different use cases, right? Like imagine, like one that you'd want to take it back to put on a skateboard or or whatever,
back to
right?
keyboard.
Like yeah, yeah, third party
Yeah,
accessories, and like different use cases that do the same thing. So I think like that's a way that you, regulate Apple, is not necessarily like destroying their ecosystem. It's making sure that everyone can play in that ecosystem.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a case to be made on how this can even help Apple, like by having just opening that
Right.
up. Like I think it would significantly help them if, like you said, it was seamless because their ecosystem is very tight, just with only Apple products, like you said. Like even
Mm-hmm.
with like a prime example even shows like even other companies before and after, like Beats they bought acquired Beats, and now Beats it's so seamless when you turn it on. It has that whole
Yeah.
like Apple integration. If you did that with more things, one you'd
If
be
you open that up and allowed anybody to have that, like, oh, I'm detecting that a Bluetooth device is coming my way,
yeah,
let me automatically do the pairing simulation, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. And there's so many. I feel like so many cool products would come out of that. Like so much
yeah,
like new, and it would help so many. Um, Not really crush competition and open also like it goes back to the kind of collaboration economy coin yeah, do the dance, Drew. Like, there's
to the moon.
to the moon. But yeah, it would just be great, and that's a great point you made. I definitely agree. I think like you said, instances of where they're like removing an app off the app store before making that a feature,
Yeah,
no, that is awful. That is so bad. Like it makes me so like angry and also sad at the same time for Flux. But
exactly,
uh,
exactly. And like that's the other thing that I find really interesting, and like an idea that, like we've talked about, for how kind of the app ecosystem can change is like for, the distribution of apps to be like, again, a standard set by some like internet regulatory agency, of which there is one, right? The people that run all of the like DNS domain stuff, like there's a real entity that like runs the internet, right? And if we like shoveled money their way, gave them some power to develop kind of a set standard for how um uh like app stores work, and maybe even like gave some public funding to do a bunch of the stuff that Apple reports that they do, that like right, for security and all these things to maintain the App Store, right? Fuck that. We'll take that off your hands, right? And now it's like this nonprofit publicly run thing. Um, it just like it takes so much. The problem with that, although I think it's great because it solves a lot of this, like Apple has control over what third party people can be in their ecosystem and also what they can do there. um right, which is bad juju magumbo and like definitely needs some regulatory stuff. The problem with how to regulate is because the internet is a global thing, it requires a lot of buy-in from kind of everyone, right? It's a federated system, and so it's really difficult to get everybody on the same page about like what the standards are and how things work. The thing is though, we've done this before, right? Like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, these are all set standards, right? That then browsers, all these things have to implement. So we've done this all before. It's just we're gonna have to kind of double down if we want to make the internet really a like and what it was promised to be, right? Which is like an open place for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just gonna need to get really good at how we think and implement regulation standards. Shout out also to my dad and Faith, for also Chelsea, obviously, for being in the chat. Again, there's 3 more of you. Like, hit us up. Like who are you? um, okay, wait, hang on. Faith, Sarah. Nice. Faith said, "How would you convince the Ron Swansons of the world that regulations that publicizing the internet is a good idea?" I think I actually don't think that it's like the Ron Swansons of the world that would like be against this, because really at the heart of this argument is like we want the internet to be a place that's free, right?
Yeah.
Or like has freedom, like gives people freedom, freedom of choice, and like ability to make something, all this stuff. And like what these big companies are doing is like squeezing through political pressure and through economic pressure out your own choice, right? This is like why it's so awesome that like these antitrust suits are supported by both Republicans and Democrats, is because for different reasons they both care, right? Like Democrats, it's really about like consumer protection and like because they're anti big companies, right? Like political clout, all these things. And for Republicans, it's about that idea of like the freedom, right? Like we don't want to be controlled, right? Like the Ron Swansons of the world are the people that don't want to be tracked, right?
Yeah.
And so the publicizing the internet and all these things is the thing that allows us to do that. So that's why I think it's really interesting. Yeah, I agree, Faith, but I used it anyway. If only Keith were on, he is the Lumastic Ron. Yeah, but again, that's what's really interesting is like Keith even is like our resident Ron Swanson, and like I don't want to speak for him, but he supports like a lot of this stuff, right? Because it's about doing what's just and fair, and that's like a big not that Keith is a Republican, but that is a big like conservative ideology, is the idea of fairness, yeah, and like moral fairness. So I think that's very interesting.
I had a kind of question kind of to tie back to Apple for you. Like in
Mm-hmm.
regards to like the open API of things like that, how that would
Yeah.
open up a lot more, I guess, third party. What do you think though of just it even as a company, as hardware? Because it's like even that space, it's hard for like the main products like the computers and phones. It seems like it's much harder for the competition to kind of come in because that's another thing that they just changed the hardware for. And so in that aspect, I was just thinking about it now, like about the whole idea of splitting it up. What are your thoughts on it as like Apple as the kind of market dominating company for computers, phones right now?
Yeah. So one of the things that makes me think of is an argument that's been brought up based on like what happened with Microsoft's antitrust suit in like the late 90s, or yeah, I think it was the 90s. Hello. Um, um, was basically the idea that like Apple controls software and hardware in like such a coalesced way, like no other computer can run OS 10. Um, and they do that right by design, because then if you want to have their OS experience, you have to buy their hardware. Um, and some people have been saying like making that not allowed, and like opening up third-party manufacturers of Apple products. Like if you can imagine, like if Lenovo made a Mac, like that'd be really interesting. Um, I don't know if that is like as important, um, because like what you're the only thing you're doing there is supporting like big computer manufacturers, because there's no, like if you think about it, there's no small computer manufacturer,
Yeah.
right? Like it takes so much scale and mass to like produce a laptop, that like you're not helping the little guy by being like, hey little guys, you could make Macs now, right? It's like it's not going to do that much damage. I think the damage is really in the app ecosystem, and kind of the how the products communicate, right? Because it is way easier, right, for a team of two or four, I guess we technically are now, to like make an app, right? Like a piece of software that can then go on to like be a really sustainable, solid company. And if you empower those people with more tools and abilities to like connect with, like connect almost natively to Apple products, then like we're Gucci gang. Like that's good for kind of the ecosystem as a whole. And like you said, it's good for Apple too, because right, the competition makes the better product experience for their customers. And the thing is, like, this isn't new for Apple. Like Apple has an entire SDK for how you like build apps for the iPhone that allow
Yeah.
you to do a lot of cool stuff, right? Like built into the thing, including like their lidar AR thing, which allows like developers to do all of the like AR kit products, like the IKEA one where you can like put stuff in your room and then see it through your iPhone, right? Like that's stuff that
Yeah.
Apple has provided because they know that it'll make a great experience for consumers, all these things. It's just that they wall off stuff once they figure out that like, oh, we could make a product here, and then like we don't like, because it literally is, it's copying, right? They saw Flux and they were like, oh, that people like that, that's very popular, we'll eat that, and then shut it out.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that just like shouldn't be allowed. So it should be just more open. And that the counter argument that Apple always says is like, well, it's about privacy. But the thing is like, it has been time and time again seen that like making things more open and transparent helps you find privacy concerns. Like they're going to be found regardless, so you might as well like make it like the founder of Linux always says like, with enough eyeballs all bugs are shallow, and like it's the same deal. So I just don't see that argument like really playing out anymore. Like I think back in the 90s you could have made that case because people didn't understand how valuable open source software is.
Yeah.
But now it's like, I mean, like half of the internet basically is run on React, and like that's an open source package that has like a bunch of built-in stuff to communicate and talk to things. And like when there are privacy bugs, whatever, they tell you, right? Like in my terminal when I'm building the application, it's like, hey, there are some privacy things you should upgrade, right? And people fix the bugs. So it just doesn't make any sense. Hi mom is also here. Shout out to our fourth minute. We still have two people unaccounted for. Yeah. Faye said, yes, suck it, Apple. That's right, Faith. Down with the system.
Down.
We're radicalizing people one Lumastic live at a time.
Yeah, next week, hope three more. We'll put
Yeah,
three
yeah,
more.
three more. We'll get to nine. Get to nine.
Nine.
Yeah, we should shout out some goals. I find it really fun that we like say in the chat like how many people are like, or we say in the live like how many people are here. So we hit 6. What's our goal for next week? I think nine.
I think
I think
let's go nine.
yeah, nine.
Nine.
3 every week. So bring as people tell your 6 people here. Tell your friends. Have somebody come in. We're gonna try to hit 9 next week. That's the goal. Chelsea in the chat said, "Show yourself."
These people are probably just watching like do I
or they clicked on something accidentally. It's like in the back of their browser or whatever. Oh Lord, Joshua,
they're
anything?
I was gonna say
What's
they're
up?
like AirPods like finally connect and they just hear two voices talking back and forth. They're just like, what? They have a million tabs open. It's like I've definitely been there with
They
you
said
too.
someone just left. Faith said someone just left after I said the word radicalizing. Yeah, I'm sure that's gonna get us demonetized or something. We're not even monetizing these videos, but it's gonna get us demonetized, deplatformed.
It's gonna make for a great TikTok though. So we count that one. Count that one. I'll take that
to
as
the
a W.
moon.
To the moon.
Oh Lordy! All right, Joshua. Anything else closing out here? Anything? Anybody in the chat has been thinking about? They want to get out so we can shout out this conversation. Yeah. Anything you got?
I think that's kind of it for me in terms of the antitrust, but this is super cool conversation that I think would be definitely cool to continue on in later Lumastic Lives, especially as you're designing, and more news is going to be coming out. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
this is
We're
such
just
a
kind
hot
of ramping
topic.
up with the testimonies and all these
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
So it might be cool every now and then to have a segment of the show where we like update people on like kind of what's happening.
Yeah, and get people to talk about it too, like maybe before and after, and
Yeah,
so,
and get a conversation going because
Yeah.
as we know, a lot of these congressional people like literally don't even know what the fuck they're talking about, and so it's gonna take, I think, a lot of public conversation to direct kind of that window of influence and conversation.
Yeah.
Chelsea said, "Been thinking about bagels, to be honest." Well, go get yourself a bagel, Chelsea. We support that here.
Yeah. We support getting your bagel. Go get a bagel.
Yeah, go get a bagel. Actually, one of my friends, Jake, who we have to like get him in the chat here because I think he'd find these conversations really fascinating. But he's thinking about opening a bagel shop. He's been cooking.
Really?
His quarantine project has been making bagels, and he's been looking into he's Jewish, so he's been looking in the history of like kind of like Jewish immigrants in New York and like bagel culture and all these things. It's been like an experience for him, and so yeah, I think it'd be really interesting, Chelsea, if you could try one of his bagels and give him some feedback.
Is he local? Is he in Charlottesville?
Yeah, he's in Charlottesville for
that's
just a
cool.
couple more months. He's about to start law school at NYU. Actually,
Oh my gosh, that's
yeah,
amazing.
it's pretty cool.
Big shout out to him.
Yeah, big shout out to Jake Gold, Jake B. Gold, at Jake B. Gold on Twitter. He's the chief of staff for Sally Hudson, who's our Virginia State rep.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. All right. Well, with that shout out, thank you, everyone. Thank you to everybody knows that we're tuning out. People are leaving. Thank you, the 6 people who came and joined us for this Lumastic Live. I hope it was fun, insightful, interesting. Yeah, Joshua, closing statements. You got anything you want to shout out? Any asks?
No, I feel like just for us, one thing that would be really cool is just to anything we talk about or any cool topics to just either tweet Drew and I or comment on the Lumastic Instagram, because I think that
Yes.
we would love to I feel like have more engagement with the chat in the future weeks, and also kind of like hear what other people kind of want to talk about, and also
Yes.
kind of spur more. It'll help spur more topics for us to kind of cover as well. So
Yes,
that's my big
exactly.
ask.
Tweet it if you find an interesting article, something you guys want us to talk about. Whoa. Sorry, I have my window open because it's so hot in my office. Um, um, but yeah, if you guys find any articles, interesting things that pertain to tech, business, this kind of like economic justice, all the topics that we love talking about, definitely tweet them. I'm at It's Just Druid on Twitter. I'm gonna make like a little thing that shows our handles in our like live chat. I think that'd be very helpful. And Joshua is, what is it, underscore Joshua
Josh,
underscore Blair.
Joshua underscore Blair. Wait, Joshua underscore Blair underscore
That's at Joshua underscore Blair underscore.
underscore.
All right, friends. Thanks for tuning in.